Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Cup of Campus. Today we're doing something a little different. We're not just doing the usual little fun conversation. We're having more of a heated debate. My name is Sadidi. I'm in my last year here. I'm studying international business and I'm half Thai, half South African. And with me I have three very, very lovely guests. Could you guys please introduce yourselves?
Hi everyone, I'm Amir Amarne. I'm studying in international business with a language and I'm currently in my third year and I'm from Jordan.
Hi, I'm Helen Beach. I'm the director of the Global Cultures and Languages Hub and I'm from the UK, England.
Hi there, my name is Ange Lim. I'm the Dean of Academy of AI. I'm from Malaysia.
Okay, lovely. Today we're going to be discussing AI, which is something that comes up a lot in classes lately.
Definitely.
Specifically about the role of AI in education. So to warm up, I'd like to ask, outside of studying and work, what would you say you use AI the most for?
Honestly, for me, I would self-identify as a power user of AI, right?
Power user.
The power user.
Interesting,
Yeah.
Amr. Interesting.
Yeah. So honestly, I would say a funny example is that recently, for example, I used two AIs, so ChatGPT and Quinn, which is an Alibaba AI. So I would tell ChatGPT translate to Chinese, and then I'll take that Chinese output, give it into to Quinn, and then it will search in Chinese for cafes in Suzhou. And then I'll take that output, because I don't know Chinese, give it to ChatGPT, translate it, and then I have a cafe. That's how I do it. That's how I manage without Chinese.
There's layers to this.
Yeah, many layers, some onion.
Okay, and you guys?
I think I use it at the moment. Did you just describe yourself as a power user of AI?
Power user.
What's the opposite to a power user?
A light user.
A light user, okay. I would say I'm a light user of AI. I tend to use it more as a search engine right now, to be honest. And yeah, I mean, I don't use it for planning. I occasionally ask it a health-related question.
We're guilty of that, we're guilty of that.
I think a lot of people do that now,
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
So
Yeah.
rather than WebMD, Dr. Google, now I'm like Dr. GPT.
Yeah.
So I occasionally ask it like a health-related question.
That's okay.
So I recently decided I was going to start taking creatine, so I asked it whether I should take it in pill form or powder form. And it gave me a whole detailed rationale, so yeah. But it doesn't replace my doctor.
Of course.
Doctor, if you're watching this,
Don't
you're
do
not
this,
a-
don't do this at home. Don't do this at home. It doesn't replace sound medical advice.
And you?
I'm in between, I think. Not that power, not that light. But I think I use it as a personal assistant, really, because sometimes we have too much to do this. So sometimes we need a discussion about which one should do first, because sometimes I need some third opinions, if you like. That's why it's better let AI tell me maybe what is the best way to do it more efficient way. So that is the way I use AI for. And sometimes, as our friend mentioned, that we go abroad or go elsewhere, sometimes we are so busy to search for the places, so we ask the AI to do the itinerary for us, so they know what is the better way to go forward. So this is the way how I use AI.
Yeah, okay. I'd say I'm also a light user. I do use it when I genuinely think it can help me, but I do try to avoid it because I am very aware of, not to get straight into it right away, but very aware of the harmful effects that AI can have both on me and the environment, etc. But we can get into that later.
I'll get into that.
So back to speaking about daily work and study at XJTLU, what AI tool would you say has become your indispensable partner?
For me, honestly, if we're gonna say predominantly, I would use ChatGPT. That's the one service that I would use the most. But honestly, my principle is that one AI, one language model is usually not enough. So I would usually use just ChatGPT, and then I would use Gemini, Claude, Anthropic, and then Quinn if it's in the context of China. Usually I would use a Chinese model. How I usually use it is that I would just, for example, when I'm, let's say, using research. Prior, I would use let's get keywords, put them in Google Scholar, and then I'll see the result, find the one that is relevant, read the abstract. If the abstract is good, then I'll use that as a citation, or at least put it into my list of potential citations. Whereas right now, I would just, prompt ChatGPT deep research and Gemini deep research, both of them. I would write it in normal human language. I would say, this is what I'm studying about, this is my research questions, this is what I'm thinking I want to do, this is the direction I want to go. What possible sources can I use that would supplement my study? And then it would give me 50, 60 sources. I would honestly say 40 of them are useless, but then the 20 of them that are useful, that's already 20 sources that I can use for my literature review. That already, now of course, you still have to read the abstract, because sometimes it does completely mess it up, but honestly, you can just try again. It's not like, oh, you don't have to stick with one answer. You can just try again, get more, and until you got the sweet spot. So that's how I usually use it. I would prompt, use.
You sound very experienced.
Very.
That's a powerful user. Yeah.
I predominantly use DeepSeek and Google Gemini. I used to use ChatGPT, but then I didn't want to pay for it anymore. So, yeah, so predominantly DeepSeek and Google Gemini. Yeah, so they're my main tools.
What do you use Gemini for?
Good question. I think I use it a little for lesson planning. Like it's quite good at producing text or editing text, so I use it a little for lesson planning. I've tried deep research, to be honest. Maybe we can get into this later. Yeah. I wasn't impressed. I really wasn't impressed.
I think he's gonna have something to say about that.
Yeah. So I think we can come back to that later. But
we will definitely come back to that.
Yeah,
I'd love right now, but
I wasn't impressed.
And you? Which specific one do you like to use?
I think Helen had raised a very crucial point, but actually I use it as a research assistant also, because at the end, I use DeepSeek, I do ChatGPT, because I have to keep switching the tools, because sometimes certain times they are very good, sometimes they are not very good. So I think I have to switch around the tools and make sure it's a best fit for the things. Research assistant, because normally I finish up the research proposal, for example, and then I will ask the tool to help to raise some research question. And then you will really raise some, based on the research proposal, raise some questions. And then from there, I will find out whether my proposal is good enough to be put forward, or maybe something, my logical thinking, maybe something wrong with that because the interpretation was wrong. So I think that is the way how I refine my research proposal before I can submit it to elsewhere. At least it provides some interaction with me and make sure whatever I put in is more logical and then also very persuasive to the reviewer, because I need some kind of preview before I can really submit my proposal. Yeah.
Okay, I see. And so like earlier you mentioned that out of like the 50, 60 sources that it gives you, most of them are useless, which leads me into my next question is, are there any way where you feel like AI tools are not being smart enough, or they're making ridiculous mistakes, or anything of the sort?
No, definitely. I mean, if you actually look at AI writing style, it's too perfect. So if you look at typical human like sentence structure, you would have random sentence length. You'd have short, long, short, medium. If it's too consistent, which is good. I mean, if it wasn't for the fact that it's AI, it would actually be considered insanely good. It would be like such an expert writer. But because it's such an expert writer, it doesn't feel human. Because it's too concise, too precise, and too much to the point, where it just really, well, it does miss. But in many contexts, it's too into the point, especially when you're asking a very already established fact, like a scientific question that is not really theorized, it's just fact. It will really be precise. So even though it's a good thing in theory, that's typically a bad mistake, because of course you guys would be very familiar, you would read a paper and then you would see the M dashes, and it's like so obvious, okay, well this is obviously AI. I mean, maybe the content isn't AI, but definitely the written form is at least AI. There has not been just nobody would use M dashes.
I do think students have found a way around that, in the sense of like they learned how to make their work look not AI generated. You tell it, don't use M dashes, make sure to use random sentence order.
The thing is with AI, it would not follow your demand. So the thing is with AI, it's a predictive form. So it would not actually listen to what you say exactly.
Yeah, it's been like, I think Emily Bender described it as a sarcastic parrot. I mean, I think
That's a great description.
Well, it is, because I think, and also she used a brilliant term. She said AI produces synthetic text, which is, when I heard that, it actually made me think about the output slightly differently. So I think same with everybody else. When we first tried like ChatGPT back in like 2022, early 2023, I think it's like, oh wow, it's amazing. But the more you actually look at it, the more you actually analyze its output, it's generic, synthetic text. And yes, like you said, it is perfect. I mean, it will give you perfect output in terms of grammar, things like that. But it's gonna like homogenize writing. Like, if everybody relies on it too much, my concern is where will the differentiation be? Like, where will the creativity be? Where will where will the variety of expression come in? It just creates this homogenized, generic, synthetic text. I just love that term, synthetic text. Yeah.
Honestly, I would say I would agree with you overall, but I would have to disagree with you in a few points. So actually, first of all, yes, true. When we used 2022, the ChatGPT was very impressive, right? Very impressive. From AI that can barely function, like we had chatbots before, but they were just programmed. They were programmed chatbots. It wasn't a predictive machine. Whereas now, because it's predictive, it was very impressive. Wow, it can make things that were not made before. And then you say that over time, people realized actually it's not as impressive as we believed. But I would say it's true. Yes, over time you realize it's not as impressive as you thought it is, but then once you start learning more about it, you go back to, oh, it's actually very, very impressive. It's like kind of like you go up, but then you go down, and then you go up again. Once you realize, okay, how much more potential it has once you actually learn how to use it. I say always, a tool is by the user. So if the user is really efficient and proficient in using it, the more effective it will be. Now you said it's generic. Yes, if you just tell ChatGPT, please write me an essay, 10,000 words about, I don't know, global warming. Definitely, it will be very synthetic because you will see all the sources talking about global warming and take it. Now, if I tell it, no, tell me, write me or give me research questions about global warming in China because of the effect of fried shipping and how did Trump sanctions affect that? Well, now suddenly ChatGPT will give me a lot more productive piece, very concise sources that will still not use the actual output as is. I might even take 10 outputs, or maybe I'll tell it, now counter your opinion. Now give me another perspective. The person, the human in the loop, who was never removed, the human in the loop is still necessary, till now, at least for now. So the genericness or the idea that the output is generic is inherent because AI isn't really supposed to write research. It's supposed to be easily understood so you can write your own research using it. That's at least how I would see it.
But do you not feel that you're still being led by AI though? Even though you might not be conscious of it or you might think you're prompting it in this way and that way, but ultimately it's still in a way kind of leading you.
Yes,
like
it is
in
leading
terms
me.
of its output.
It is leading me.
And the human in the loop, I totally agree. I think because we're going to get into this with education, like as long as you're not completely cognitively offloading and you're actually remaining like active in the conversation, I think potentially you're right, it does have some benefits, but unfortunately I'm concerned that some students are not necessarily engaging with AI in the way that you have just described, which is quite an active process. Also, how do you know that AI, the output that AI is giving you, how do you discern between good content, bad content, right? Like you need to know in order to know, right? So you mentioned before that AI generates output for an essay or a report, and you can immediately identify 40 of the sources are of poor quality, right? So you already have the ability to judge, to critically think about its output. But that requires a base level of understanding. Like my concern is when people engage with AI, but they don't necessarily have the foundational understanding so that they don't have the ability to evaluate the output, the AI, like the evaluative judgment part of it. So you said you're in year 3, right?
Correct.
Do you think if you went back 2 years ago, would you have been in the same situation as you are now in terms of your ability to use AI as well as you currently are? Or do you believe that you laid a fundamental foundation in terms of academic skills, knowledge within the discipline that now enables you to better engage with AI? So my point is, do you think that AI should be used more in, say, the upper levels of academia, like students in year 3, year 4, or postgraduate? And it shouldn't be used by students in year 1 or 2, for example, because they don't yet have the foundational knowledge.
So I will actually answer your question by going through the points that you mentioned. So you first mentioned that AI would be leading you, which I fully agree with. But wouldn't you also say me reading academic sources that I believe are authoritative? Because that's what we're told. Authoritative sources are authority. They're naturally more credible than me. So I would read that. If someone tells me, oh, where did you bring that point? Well, blah, 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 et al. 2005 said this, and boom, we're verified.
Yeah, but an academic source doesn't do the sycophantic kind of, oh my God, your ideas are so wonderful, that AI does.
Of course, but we can prevent that. Yeah, but we can prevent that using specific prompting. So with prompt engineering, we can actually make sure that it gives us concise or outer output. Now, of course, there is limitations, but I would say, again, the second point, the idea that you said, well, not everyone is prepared or able to use AI. I would say yes, but also not everyone is able to assess their own sources. Not everyone is qualified to just read a source and say this source is good or not.
But don't you think this exacerbates an existing problem, though?
Yes, which is why the third point is that university should be the one teaching us how to use AI from year one. That's my whole point, is that just like it teaches us to use other sources.
I think that's one thing. I think Helen also raised a very crucial point also, because I think in 2022, we're impressed is because AI is coming in. And bear in mind, because AI is more like data filling. So most of the time, in 2022, all the data are clean, if you like. Okay, but now because we have people start feeding the computer with lots of not the facts, so the AI will start picking up also, because at the end they only study whatever they study, but they don't able to tell what is facts or not facts. So I think also that's why I quite agree that in early year of or in university they shouldn't rely on too much of AI, because they have to learn the fundamental knowledge to able to tell which is lies, which is the facts. They have to be careful. And sometimes it's because of people's mindset, because when you start using AI, you already trust them. That's why you're using them. So you have most toward to whatever they're leading you to. So you have to be careful on that, because at the end, you trust and you use them. But talking to human with a stranger, of course, you always have the mindset saying, I have to be careful, I need to watch him before I trust him. But AI is different. AI, because you already trust them before using it. Otherwise you are not using AI. So that's why you have to be careful. In your mind, you also keep reminding yourself they might lie to you. So you have to be careful. Not because they lie to you, but because the data they have received, they've been trained on the misleading. So it's not much he can do. He's just misleading all the way through. If you keep trusting them, you just go other way tangent. So that's why we need someone really know what is the facts to put it back.
Yeah, I agree. And I really like the direction that this conversation is going in right now. And I want to ask, do you feel like AI is an unfair shortcut in the context of education? Or do you feel like it's a natural evolution of educational tools?
So,
No, you go. Yeah.
So for me, naturally, I would say in this stages it would be an unfair shortcut, but it's not yet accessible enough. It is a shortcut that is unfair as of right now, but it is definitely a tool that can evolve to become more fair. But right now, with how costly it is, of course, to some people $20 might not be much, but to others that can be a lot. And yes, DeepSeek is free, but you still need internet, you still need a computer, you still need the knowledge. I mean, knowledge of itself is a privilege. So, of course, it's a tool that accelerates your efficiency a lot, so naturally it's going to be a shortcut. But I wouldn't say that it's inherently is unfair. I would say currently it's unfair because of the fact that, well, people don't have good education on it, which goes back to the last point that I think it's our education system responsibility to make it more aware, to make it please don't use AI, but actually please use AI, and we're going to judge you knowing you're using AI. And based on that, we'll grade you, knowing that everyone is using AI. That's what I believe. But of course, the education system needs time to calibrate everything. So.
Yeah, I believe, honestly, it's too early to answer that question and no one knows the answer. And the thing that frustrates me the most is people keep making these absolute statements that, you know, AI will enhance education, AI can create personalized learning journeys, AI. They talk about as if it's an absolute certainty that AI will improve education. I would say nobody can say that with any degree of certainty at this moment. Because it could actually have severe detrimental effects on learning, knowledge acquisition. It could increase, as you briefly mentioned, it could fundamentally increase the divide, right? In terms of those that have access to it or are trained how to use it effectively versus groups of people that currently don't have these tools. But I think it's only now that we're beginning to learn the negative impacts of social media, right? And I think recently a lot has been written on this. So for us to sit here and just, I think the thing that annoys me the most is the fact that people talk with certainty. We don't know. Like, we cannot say that AI is going to improve education. And also, I'd like to pick up on a point that you mentioned earlier about universities should teach students how to use AI. And we often use, you know, we need to teach responsible use and ethical use. So again, we work on the assumption that everybody has the same understanding of what that means. Like, what is responsible use? What is ethical use? So we just assume that these words mean the same thing for everybody. Well, they don't, first of all. Secondly, you're asking me as a university teacher to teach you how to use AI. Well, first I need to teach myself. Right? So I think it's interesting now in education because obviously your professors, you said you're studying business, right? International business. So they have a high level of understanding of international business than you, right? Because it's their discipline, it's their background, they've studied it. But I think this kind of levels the playing field a little bit in the sense that some of our students are way more proficient, like you are definitely more proficient at using AI than I am. You're a power user, I'm a light user, right? So I think there's that aspect too, like for faculty here, like you're trying to upskill and you're trying to learn these tools, you're trying to understand them from an educational perspective, and they're constantly evolving, and you're trying to think about them pedagogically or educationally as well. And then, because I've gone through, you mentioned the up and the down. I mean, initially I was like, no, then I was yes, but now I have to admit that I'm coming down again in the sense that I am seriously concerned that these tools are going to have more detrimental effects long term than they are going to have positive effects. And again, we'll probably get into that a bit later. But yeah, back to my fundamental point, I just think we need to show a little bit of humility, like speaking with a level of certainty about the potential positive effects that this is going to have, I think isn't right. I think we need to show humility and be honest that we don't yet know. And I think if we keep that humility going, I think we can have the difficult conversations that we need to have. I just feel like sometimes we close down conversations by saying, well, of course it's going to improve education. So yeah, that would be...
I completely agree. I think it's very, very case dependent. And like you said, I think it very much revolves around the user, right? Because you were mentioning earlier, it's unfair because you feel like some people might not have access to the same resources, or other people might have access to this and that. So yeah, again, I think it's completely dependent on the person. Do you have anything to add?
I think for me, right, AI tool definitely is a shortcut, but fair or unfair, I think it depends how we educate people, really. At the end, you need to be transparency, right? And then you need to be knowing the process. As when everyone on the same board, then we play the same game, then it will become fair. Otherwise, we're unfair. That's what I'm saying. Sometimes the guidance, as an educator, I think we also need to be clearer to have a certain, at least is in line with the policy, at least it's clearer policy whether we can use AI tool up to certain level. Then this needs to be transparent. Otherwise, definitely unfair because people might use it more, using less, right?
But yeah.
That's why you need to draw a line and make sure this is the line we don't cross, but we can win the line.
Yeah, exactly. Drawing that line is impossible. Like, because we've talked about the difference between, at what point is AI assistance AI cheating? Like, where is that line?
I would say, okay, I would add to how to draw the line in my personal view. Okay, I see right now, for example, I fully agree with your point, right? I fully agree with the point that we cannot have certainty whether it actually be good for education. But the question is, isn't if it's going to be good or bad, because only the future will determine that. But what we do know for sure, it's being adopted. Are we able to stop adoption? Definitely not. That I can for sure, because for example, I mean, recently, Reuters, literally in 2025, they said Microsoft is now forcing their managers their employees to use Copilot suite in Microsoft suite. They have to. It's now part of their points to get money. So Microsoft, a giant, right, of a corporation, is already not just recommending AI, enforcing use of AI. So, well, when I graduate, and I was told in university, oh, please don't use AI because it's unfair. Of course, but now I have to use AI. And now Microsoft telling me, okay, no, actually your whole payment is dependent on how good are you at using AI. I fully understand that it's also not expected of the educators to suddenly learn how to use AI. But also I expect from, well, any education is to also be qualified to work in my field, right? I expect that when I graduate to at least have the requirements. Well, since now it's becoming a requirement, again, I'm not saying that I believe you can double check the Reuters. So that's why I would say the line has to meet what the career field, what the job market, what are the requirements by the big companies. Because obviously, of course, education is not just about finding a job, but finding a job is a very important thing, right? Being graduating and sitting at home, not getting a job is kind of, So that's why I want to feel like I'm qualified.
But one thing for sure is I think education needs reform. If you're looking at that way, you need a reform, which way to go for. I think this needs to be seen really.
Yeah, But I think, okay, yeah, I take on board what you said, but at the end of the day, if you've learned how to use AI, not you personally, but if a student has learned how to use AI, great. But if they've learned how to use AI to circumvent actually doing work in the discipline, and then their actual foundational disciplinary knowledge isn't there. Because again, I heard on a podcast the other day, they were talking about using AI for coding. For every hour that they've saved using an AI to code, they've actually added an hour in the quality assurance process.
That's actually an average.
Yeah.
But that's an average of the bad and the good.
Yeah. So I just think when we talk about AI, like, again, the words that are often used are efficiency and optimization. And again, is AI actually making us more efficient? Right? I mean, I know this is probably going off on a tangent, but I just...
Shifting the seat.
There's just one point because of the statistic, because I know it's commonly used, the idea that, of course, and yeah, it's true, the statistic, if you look at it just as a statistic, is correct. But we're not considering how many more people are programming. What you call now, I forgot the actual term for it, but vibe coding. They call it vibe coding, right? That's what it's called, it's a vibe coding. It's a technical term, right? So vibe coders are coders that don't know how to code. But now we have almost, and I'm not joking, it's around, actually, don't quote me on this, but I think it's in the zone of 40 to 60% of coders now are vibe coders. These are coders that have no idea how to use Python, how to use HTML, how to use JavaScript, but now, yet, they're making full-on websites, functional websites. So once you add that into the equation, of course, you'll have less spare, because it's averaged out. They average out the new ones and the old ones.
But back to your point about getting a job, like, aren't a large number of entry-level jobs that like graduates would take in the past now being taken by AI? And isn't the fundamental distinction between somebody that gets sort of employed is other skills like creativity, critical thinking? Like, I understand your point about needing to develop the AI skills, but I am not convinced that having AI skills is what's going to get you a job necessarily. Like, I actually think in the AI, again, a phrase that if I hear it one more time, I might actually scream, the AI era. In the AI era, I honestly believe that other skills are going to be more highly valued. So again, thinking about this like link between education and employment, and everyone just jumps on the AI bandwagon, it's like AI. I think but I think we might lose sight of all of the other skills that are still fundamentally important, if not more important. I just don't want us to become, I'm not denying, I just want to make it clear, I'm not denying the importance of AI. The horse is out of the stable. I understand we can't put the genie back. I'm using lots of metaphors here. We can't put the genie back in the lantern. I understand that. But I also don't want us to become blinkered and think this is, I just use like 57 different, we've got a genie, we've got blinkers, we've got a horse, But you get what I mean, right?
But the thing is,
it's
I fully agree with you.
Yeah.
I would not only just fully agree, I would say what you say is what will be your comparative advantage.
Yeah.
Because I say there's going to be some fundamental level of AI, but everything else that's not related to AI is going to be that differentiate you. That's what I believe.
Yeah. Okay. Go on.
Okay.
This is like ping pong.
Let's hold our
Fun.
horses.
I love it.
Let's hold our horses, as they say. I want to ask you specifically, do you think AI could replace teachers, or do you think human guidance is essential in education? I know you two have something to say, but I'd like to ask you specifically.
I think in the future, as I say, education needs to reform. As an educator, I think we're not longer feeding knowledge. We could a little bit, but mostly we are becoming mental. Actually, we will have to coach the future student how to pick up the right informations, how to make more discussions. And then in the future, lecture will not be a really lecture, it will be more interactive and then more dialogue, which is computer cannot give you, right? At least a live dialogue and guide you through an hands-on experience, right? Experimental. And these are very crucial for the future, really. And then become a good friend also with AI and move on with the lecture.
Yeah, okay. What do you think, Professor? You first.
I'm scared. She looked at me. I was like, oh.
Well, I was waiting for you to go, and then I could, like
Feedback.
riff off you. No, I don't think it will fundamentally replace teachers. I still think humans want some type of human connection. Maybe I'm old school in that respect.
Oh, I completely agree.
I also don't fully trust it for a number of reasons. Like, it is, as you said, a large language model that's been trained on teachers, but it's also been trained on absolute slop that has been taken from across the entire internet, right? It's also now being trained on its own output, so we've got a bit of inbreeding going on as well. Like, people are producing academic papers using AI, and AI, so the term AI slop is now used, right? We still need to maintain an ability to look at all of that output and be able to discern, like make some judgment about it. And I am just worried that if we're 100% focused on AI output without, I think you used the term human in the loop, right? Like, give it another few years, what are we even going to be reading? I mean, already, I read some, like, I can't remember the exact statistic, but yesterday about the number of like journal articles submitted to a journal, and then the number of those that had AI generated content, and now the peer review process is also being conducted by AI. I mean, I'm sorry, like, yes, we talk about the value it might have in research, but it might also have the opposite effect, that we might be publishing like research that lacks nuance, right? Like, because we've used AI to summarize previous research papers, and that summary hasn't picked up on some nuance, and then this just snowballs.
As they say.
And I mean, even when you go on Google now, you have to go to like the 3rd page before you get past all the slop that's been generated.
It leads with the AI overview, doesn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, okay, I actually fully agree. Like, I don't think inherently AI can replace a teacher fully, right? But and I think we can agree. I mean, we can agree on the severity of how much, but we can all agree that there must be refinement to how the teacher would teach, the curriculum, how is it like processed, how, for example, maybe instead of doing submission online, you just submit some writing that is most likely going to be AI generated in the majority of the time. But instead you have it on site. Maybe you ask them, oh, how did you write it? Maybe you make them submit it, but then ask them for each submission, do a 10 minutes interview. Okay, how did you write it? What was the thinking process? And it has to be in face, because people will use AI still.
Yeah.
That will give them a teleprompter, and they will start reading. Oh yeah, I use this example. So to avoid it, we have to put more effort, really. It will for sure reform the teaching process, because I think, for example, if it's 2 a.m. and I have a question and my submission is at 8 a.m. I email my professor, they're not going to reply to me, and nor is it expected for them to reply. It's ridiculous for me to expect them, right? It's too much pressure. So if anything, I think it's a tool, assistant for teacher. Teacher will also feel more relaxed, because at least the very basic questions will be sorted out, because a lot of people are really bad at searching. I mean, we always talk about how you should learn how to use AI, but a lot of people also don't know how to use internet, let's be honest, and it's a very developed
I do think
product.
the most ideal use of AI in education would be as more of a tutor form. I think the worry is when the line between assistance and substitution becomes blurred. I think that's where the whole issue is, really.
Yeah, I like that phrase. Or when, like you said, you're describing like this perfect student,
Definitely.
right? Like you're totally, you're totally in control of your use. You understand its like advantages and disadvantages. And like you said, you are the human in the loop. Like you're an active, you're a power user of it. So you understand its limitations. Unfortunately, I have year 1 students that tell me in class things like, oh yeah, they're talking about all the positives of AI, AI is great. They're not aware that it's generating garbage. They're not aware how to prompt. They don't apply the level of criticality that's needed to be the responsible human in the loop. And You know, like you said, I totally agree with what you said. 2 a.m. you've got a question, of course, you know, if you email me at 2 a.m. I'm fast asleep. I get it. And you get an answer and you can move on. So you're not stuck for a day or two waiting for your professor to respond. But again, when the AI gives you the answer, you have to be able to, trust that the answer that it's given is accurate, right?
I mean, I would say, right, 2 points. Because I can see your stance on AI is that it's a tool that we have to be very cautious of. That it's a tool that it can very quickly spiral out of control and cause slop, as you say, slop knowledge, and where people don't have their self-determination, they lose their own, forget the actual term.
Erosion of skills too, right?
Of course, of course.
I've felt
I would
it.
argue erosion of some skills while building up different skills. But I would also argue, I would agree with you, more erosion than building, definitely. Because AI is too general of a tool, that it can replace a lot of skills. But my question would be is, okay, what is the alternative? Because how the economy is going, how the world is. I mean, as much I really love hoping that AI would just, we click upon it and we stop it and we say, okay, now we're gonna actually research it, be ethical about it, look at how we deal with it ethically and make sure it doesn't ruin the labor market as it is already, ruin education as it is already, and making so much, as you say, the academia field, all these research papers that, you know, it's really not up to standard. Well, it's happening anyways. So how
it doesn't have to, but again, it's this is what concerns me. It's like, it's the, I agree that you and I can't stop it, but I think it could be stopped. It could be stopped. There's what, 6 or 8 people currently globally that is making all of the decisions linked to AI and our future and the future of humanity and the potential impact on jobs. I think, again, it's this mindset, it's like this, it's inevitable. It doesn't have to be inevitable, actually.
But what if it does happen? Shouldn't people be aware of the limitations from year one? Just like we teach EAP, mandatory for all.
Well, that's what I teach.
Right? So EAP, right, is a mandatory course for teaching English for anyone who is not a native speaker, right? Well, that might not be necessary for someone who's doing mathematics. Yeah, you might say, but they can prove it, and you know, still you have to do EAP, right? I had to do EAP, right? Because I'm a native speaker, even though I had that also. That's fine, because it makes sense, because academic English is very different than English. And if I had the presumption that, oh, I am good enough in English, then I would have been wrong, because I learned a lot from EAP, right? So why not have that 1-year course where it teaches about AI, it teaches about the limitations, it teaches about, because I agree with you fully. AI is mostly used badly. It's mostly used incorrectly. It's mostly used for bad outputs. But when it is used correctly, it can be productive, can still be bad. I'm not denying that. Even if used correctly, it can be bad actors always exist, right? But nonetheless, it does not negate the fact that if, of course, there are people who can do things about it, but I am not gonna also be able to go force them to change it. So what I can do is at least make people aware. As an educator, spread the awareness until hopefully we can control it, or the people do decisions. The decision makers finally do something.
I think sometimes we talk about AI, right? We too much on the technical itself. Actually, we forgot about, now we always complain communication is quite poor. Human to human communication are quite poor. If you think about it, you all rely on AI. Who's going to do group discussions? Where your ideas come from? All from machines. So you have to be careful. I think the future teacher need to become a facilitator. They just try to facilitate the discussions, right? And more interaction in the group discussion, put everyone back to the real world and how we make decisions and coaching them through that way. I think the teacher will become more important than now, because otherwise you will rely on AI and just they will lead you to wherever they want to go to. But in the future, the teacher are more important role also, because they have to pull you back and knowing what is right, what is wrong. All right, and then we have the communications. In the future, you might have social problem because no one talk to each other because they don't know how to talk. They only type. Right? And then the facilitator, the teacher, then we have to showing you really how to talk, how you present yourself, not only by machine, because everything we generated by machine is bad enough. So you should know what is right and how you present your story, for example. I think this is very important. Teacher have to pull you back as a center point, right?
Building on that, and also what you were suggesting earlier, at XJTLU, do you think XJTLU should be able to prepare students and teachers for a future where AI plays a very dominant role in work and learning? Like, in what way can we prepare for that? Because you kind of suggested that maybe in year one they could offer a course where they teach you about how to use AI, right?
So-
which we
And you were saying
currently
something
do.
about helping
Yeah,
teachers
yeah,
helping
yeah,
us.
yeah. There's a XPU 001 module now.
Yep.
It's mandatory,
there?
mandatory for all students, semester 1 and
I guess this
semester.
does it have to do with the
Semester
new
one,
laws?
semester
Because
two.
also a lot of countries are using new laws.
Yeah, it's a
for them.
they're 2.5 credit modules that sit out of the standard degree credit structure. I don't know the exact curriculum, but I believe it
Some
is.
ethical theory
Yeah.
being taught also because you guys are senior students, so you have missed because we started on last September. We start introducing year 1 modules with AI, and even the coming semester we will start feeding with AI on year 2 also. Try to show them what is a proper way to use AI tools.
I would say that's actually I would always say that's a great start. It's just we have to make sure we're upkeeping because unfortunately AI evolves so quickly that if we're not keeping up, it's just like the medical field. If you just miss it for 6 months, boom, you're out of date. Suddenly there's new illnesses, new medicines, and you're a bad doctor. All the stuff you study is like, oh, right? So that's why I feel like in these kind of modules, we have to always make sure they're adapting. Like maybe every year, maybe every semester, who knows?
Sometimes you have to be careful, right? Because like our time, maybe you are too young also. When we start using Windows, right? People think a lot of people losing job, but actually we use it as a tool. Now everyone just not talking about Windows anymore. Microsoft. Like we used to think about people have a lot of clerks who are going to lose their job because there's no longer people need typing at the end. Now we use it as a normal tool and move on. We use it as an editor.
I would like to say, yeah, actually a lot of people lost their job, right? Like the dot-com bubble, a lot of people were so scared of the internet, oh, it's going to remove deliveries, it's going to remove all of this, but made new jobs. Now, will AI do that? Well, based on our studies right now, probably not.
You're right on that from a job as prospective point of view. I think, but you have to be careful. In the future, population going to drop also. Who's going to do the job if without AI? Who's going to do those jobs?
Demographics are not
So you
looking
have to be careful. Now the trading is that the population drops dramatically, right? You have to be careful. And in the future, who's going to work? AI have to help you to work. Otherwise, there's no one to help you at the end. Now we think about now, of course, we have enough people, human power, that's enough. But about 10 years and 20 years later, you see the population just a clip drop. Right? Quite scary. And then the time, who's going to work for you then? Some job really need redundancy that time.
Well, that.
Sorry, no, go ahead.
No,
please.
please.
No, I was just going to say, especially as, you know, I hear about companies that have to employ like AI bodyguards, right? Like,
Yeah, bodyguard.
well, it's essentially, yeah, the people that are checking and verifying the AI content or the AI coding. It's like and some companies, unfortunately, they're using AI bodyguards for AI.
Yep.
Like, look, like, it's the same with everything in terms of scientific research. Like, just because we can doesn't mean we should. And I ultimately am just concerned about who is making all of these decisions linked to the development of AI with their vested interests.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Actually,
it's
funny
like,
you mentioned that, by the way, because that's kind of what I do. It's called triangulated prompt chaining. So you take one AI from one model, another AI from another model, another AI from another model, and you take one output, give it to the other, output to other, output to other. So you have another wall of support to reduce hallucination, not eliminate hallucination, it does not eliminate it, but it does reduce it because you have 3 different models with 3 different data points. So the likelihood of all matching, because it's a predictive machine, right? AI is inherently just, I predict this word will predict this. It's unlikely that all 3 will predict incorrectly. It is likely, not likely, it is possible, but it's unlikely. That is why the thing you mentioned, AI bodyguard, that's why they put one bodyguard to one bodyguard, but typically there's still one human there, but it is scary to see it happening because ironically, that human is teaching an AI to do its job by doing it. Once you click accept or deny, the AI is learning.
yes.
And now it's becoming self-sufficient. So,
And then it gets to the point that
self-sufficient.
you're no longer able to, you know, it's yeah. It's,
I quite like Helen mentioned that actually when you create AI, then you need create another AI to self-checking, if you like. Actually, you create another job.
instead of turtles all the way down, it's like AI all the way down.
Exactly.
There's one guy on top. And then you ask the question, why is that guy on the top anyways? At that point, just replace him too. At that point.
Plays everywhere.
That's what I say, CEOs, replace them.
Right. Okay. Well, I think looking ahead, I feel like there's going to be a lot of big changes. As you said, things are moving very quickly. So my last question for all of you would be, what do you think is going to be the biggest change in university because of AI, looking 10 years ahead? You can think about it.
I'm actually curious what you guys would say, because you guys are obviously way more familiar in this.
I think we need to be careful that we don't create a situation whereby going to university is no longer necessary. I mean, maybe I'm being a little bit dramatic, but if I know we said earlier that we didn't want to talk about kind of banking model of education and credentialism, but actually I think there is a connection here, because if students are going to university purely to get the piece of paper, the credential, AI offers the perfect shortcut to that credential. Like, you can circumvent, you can go around learning. I honestly think we are going to have to fundamentally shape education. But by that, learning for learning's sake, maybe I'm being a little bit sort of utopian here, but about going and wanting to learn something purely to learn, rather than have this focus on, I need the piece of paper. You know, we've got undergraduate students that in year 1, year 2 are already thinking about postgraduate, and it's like, you haven't even, do you know what I mean? Slow down a minute. It's just like, okay, get this piece of paper and then get that piece of paper and then I will be employable. Well, no, I mean, so I'm just worried about the longevity of the higher education model, to be honest. Maybe it's not 5 or 10 years, but actually further down the line, I don't know. Will universities still exist in their current form 15, 20 years from now? Especially if the job market stays the same and you're graduating and you're unable to find a job, was it worth the financial investment?
I mean, that's the one issue about education, because it does cost you money. So it's kind of like you think about your return on investment, right?
Yeah. So I think, yeah.
I actually really like your point. That's like, I genuinely fully agree in the sense that, yes, education right now is being challenged, which I would like to argue, it's not just because of AI, it was there always.
Yes.
I really do believe that the issue was already there. It's just AI made it so obvious, because you really can't ignore it anymore. Like, definitely cannot ignore it.
It's exacerbated all of the problems that exist in education. That's why it's kind of interesting, right? Because you mentioned earlier about like professors and teachers needing to change the way they teach, but that would be fine in a perfect situation where we had small class sizes, where we could work one-on-one, where where staff weren't, and I'm not just talking about XJTLU here, universities globally, right? Increasing class sizes, increasing teaching loads, like professors having more assessments to mark. They don't have the time to dedicate or to work on an assessment where you might actually take the students through the process, right? Like, or you can even backwards engineer it, right? Get them to generate the output via AI and then work backwards. Like, create a reverse writing process, right? Where you critique the AI output and then you actually mark the process. But that would require professors having time, right? It would require small class sizes. It would require us almost going back 20, 30 years, where you can sit, your class is literally you and 10 students. And so I think that's why it's really interesting, because you're right, the problems were kind of there. And this is just putting a massive spotlight on some of those problems. And the reason why we can't necessarily not stop it, but we can't mitigate against some of the pernicious effects of AI is because of the current structure of higher education.
I would say it's pretty rigid too, which is why it's like, and it's good to be rigid in some cases, of course, it cannot be so flexible that, tomorrow we're gonna just announce new policy for AI, because then, I mean, you still have to test it, you are talking about students and their future, and they are paying you money to teach it, so you have certain responsibilities to meet, and you cannot just, okay, well, tomorrow we're gonna make a new course about AI, and we're just gonna introduce it to everyone, without even double checking. It's ridiculous. And so it's like a game back and forth, where like, okay, education is trying to fix the issues, but they cannot really do it in time, and it's like continuously they have still new students enrolled, and then, okay, well, if I change it now, what if the current students tell me, oh, well, I didn't learn about this in year 1, how much, it's unfair to me, they're gonna increase the average, or blah, 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 and so many things to think about, so many elements, so many variables. So, of course, unfortunately, to answer your question, I would personally say, I don't know, because it's so difficult.
Unfortunately, I think it is one of those things where students feel like if you can't beat it, get with it. And I do think that completely rejecting AI learning is unrealistic. So unfortunately, a lot of us do use it. It just comes down to, as we've been discussing this whole time, it's very case dependent. It's very dependent on whether or not the human in the loop is responsible with their use, right? I think that's what everything comes down to.
I honestly would like to say that if someone submits something with AI, you'll notice it. You'll genuinely notice it when you're marking it. you'll notice that suddenly, compared to all the other papers, a sudden increase in mistakes or a sudden increase in the logic is different. The content is not as deep because so many people use AI for research. Now, where they fall flat is when they use it for the whole thing. Because that will also be very obvious. This is clearly AI. It's the middle ground that's so hard to determine. Like, is it someone who's smart or is it someone who's using AI you can't really know? Because they're really fluid. They're using some AI, they're using some of their logic, they're using some of their writing, they're using some of the AI writing, and so on.
Sometimes we have to be very careful for AI, right? In 10 years later, right? Because I know AI brings a lot of convenience, but it also brings a lot of high expectation. In the future, whether students or teacher also require multidisciplinary, because at the end, because knowledge becomes so cheap, you're not only learning your own area, you try to learn many areas because it's reachable. Not like before, we only can do our professional, that's the one route to go to the end, because you're so limited. But now you can access to the knowledge wherever you come, okay? You don't know the math, ask ChatGPT if you want. You don't know the science, ask ChatGPT or DeepSeek whatsoever. So at the end, this will require human try to force to learn more, actually. Although it brings some conveniences, but the trouble is more higher expectation because you want to survive. You know, human, right? Human always want to be special, to be elite. Yeah, to be elite. And then you will end up, you will force yourself to learn more. For example, you will learn science, you will learn engineering, you might learn something else also. This has become, we have to be very, very careful with conveniences, but also a lot of drawbacks. You have to be careful where, once again, we talk about where to draw the line, but difficult to draw this line.
But that's generally what I say, that because of how much people are using AI, the expectations went up.
Yep.
Like, I think the expectation of the quality of the writing went so much up that it's balancing out. Like before, the expectation, like if you submit something now to 2020 and you submit it, everyone will be like, what? How is this a student for what this? This is insane. Whereas now it's like, yeah, you probably used AI here and there, and oh, he used it too much, oh, he didn't use that much. It's kind of like in the mind. When I'm even reading like some coursework or something, I'm writing, or I'm like checking what my other friends wrote before the last year or something, and I'm like, I know they use AI here, I can feel it, because I've used it so often that I know when they just took it, copied it, dropped it as is. They didn't really change anything. It's so, like, it's obvious once you really get familiar with it. So I feel like the expectations also just go really, really up.
It potentially will become less obvious, right? Yeah. And I think you used an interesting word repeatedly there, learn, 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 learn. I might argue that there will be less learning.
I hope not. That's my favorite thing to do, is learning.
Yeah, I just mean, you know, I think AI can lure you into a false sense of security and make you believe you know something, right? Like, it is, and it's
That's
because,
one way to put it.
You know, I know how to code. No, you don't. You know how to prompt AI how to code. You don't know how to code.
I agree. It's like hiring someone to run a marathon for you and saying you trained for it.
Yep. So that's my concern. I mean, how much learning is actually taking place?
Well, that's
on that note,
that's a question for you, the viewer.
How much learning is actually taking place?
How much learning is learning?
I'm wagging my finger now.
If you're watching this in 10 years' time, you'll leave a comment.
Oh yeah, please tell us how right were we? Probably very wrong.
Let us know.
You'll be laughing. You'll be like, oh,
Let us
those
know.
peons
They
know
have their
nothing.
AI robots giving them their food to them, like, oh, look at these people.
We're just on a leash.
Imagine learning. Imagine learning.
I'm like,
This video was summarized by AI to them. They didn't even watch it. It was just read to them.
It's like Terminator, you know.
Oh
I'm just,
no,
I'm
I
just
hope that never
a
happens.
pet.
I really hope that never happens.
Well,
On that
we'll
note,
see.
on that happy note.
Okay, well, on that note, thank you very much for joining us for this lovely, lovely episode. Thank you guys
Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Of course, thank you guys
Thank
for
you.
everything today. Would you like to do the call to action?
I would do the closing is that I think if you're well done today, so please invite us back again, right? So I see you again next episode, right?
Okay, thank you. Please like, subscribe, follow us everywhere at XJTLU. Thank you very much for joining us today. That's a wrap. Thank you.
Bye.